Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're a stickler for time, so we're bang on time. It's 2 p.m. here in Munich. I'm not sure where it is, wherever you are around the world, but you are more than welcome to join us today. I'm more than a little bit excited, I have to say, to be here in Munich today. I kind of missed it last year and ended up doing this job from my bedroom. So I'm here, rather strangely, not in my bedroom, which is good because there's about 300 people behind the camera that you can't see. So that would have been a little bit strange. But you are more than welcome to join us for this afternoon's program. We've got an excellent lineup for you this year, as you would expect from the Future Promotion Forum, now in its 4th year. So for those of you that have been with us from the beginning, thank you very much for coming back. And for those of you maybe that are joining us for the first time today, you are more than welcome. We've actually had registrations, I think over 900 now for today. So if you are one of those 900 sitting somewhere in countries all over the world, too many to mention, I should say. I know we've got a lot of new viewers in today from the US as well. So you are more than welcome. And in fact, my friend that you can't see to my right is wearing an LA Dodgers baseball cap in honor of you. So that's for you. He's smiling at me. So welcome. What we have for you today, of course, is the Future Promotion Forum. And to give you a little bit of a flavor of what we're going to be talking about, it's all about channel orchestration for the ultimate user experience, where we see a world where digital marketing channels are established, the greater part of marketing budgets flow into these channels. However, these digital channels alone don't seem to be enough for brands to reach today's consumers. What else do they need? We're going to be looking at a number of options around that today, and we've got speakers joining us from all over the world as we go along. What many people may not be aware of is that the latest development in high-speed digital printing allows print to fit seamlessly into all of those digital channels. So whatever your issue, we've got a solution for you today, and we'd be really pleased to hear from you. That sort of kicks us into the first poll, really. We'd really like to know where you are and whether you're a first-time caller. We're going to have a big number of these polls throughout the day. So the first one, I think, should hopefully be coming up on your screen. And it's really who's new, who's first time, who's their first year here at the Future Promotion Forum. If you can click that button, we'll come back to you shortly with the answers so that we know how many of you are joining us for the first time. But before I go any further, and it's traditional with any sort of conference, we have to give you the housekeeping. Fortunately today, I don't have to tell you where the loos are because they're wherever you live. But what I do have to show you is the housekeeping that you should be able to see on your screen right now. You'll see in the top right-hand corner of your screen, there is a button there for translation. We're actually having this translated into 5 different languages for you today. The only one that we decided not to is Scottish. You'll see why later. But we have multiple translations there available for you if you need it. You'll also see at the top right there the button for the Q&A. So if you do have any questions that you want to ask us today, please do ping them into the Q&A. Or in fact, if you have any questions at all, maybe about the event, maybe you're having some technical difficulties, but ping them into the Q&A for us and we will do our very best to answer all of those. And then finally, the polls. I mentioned a moment ago that we're going to be doing 4 of these through the day. I will be bringing you the results of those polls as we go along. But please do participate. It's great fun to see the answers come literally from all over the world, so we hope that's going to be the case today. So, without further ado, let's get into today's content, and I'm really pleased to be able to introduce our first guest. And in fact, talking of America, she's in Houston. So we've got Nicole Ramirez, who's joining us today, and it's going to be very early in the morning for her, so just go gently with her. Thank you. Nicole is a digital marketing professional, and some of you might know her from her TEDx talk that she did recently on personalization and the privacy paradox. It's actually had over 21,000 views, which makes it one of the most popular TEDx talks of all time. Today, she's going to talk to us about the next normal for marketing and how brands are under a critical eye and how you can pivot your strategy and measure your success. Let's hear from Nicole.
My name is Nicole Ramirez. I am a digital marketing professional specializing in marketing technology, processes, and data-driven strategy. I am the owner of NR Digital Consulting, and I've worked in several different industries on marketing automation, customer journeys, website optimization, and performance strategy. Over the past 10 years, I've experienced the evolution of the digital marketing industry and understand the challenges facing today's companies and embrace the opportunity for businesses to become brands through digital marketing and storytelling. I'm here today to talk to you about the next normal for marketing and how brands are under a critical eye, how you can pivot strategy and then measure your success. I often like to joke that marketing has broken my brain when it comes to consuming content, watching shows, or even going out shopping and eating. This is because, as most marketers will tell you, we are constantly examining, criticizing, and even sparking ideas from the types of campaigns and messaging that we see companies out there doing. During quarantine, I saw an ad for Apple called Creativity Goes On. The focus was that many people during lockdown are still pursuing their passions and furthering their careers, or even pivoting into different things such as photography, podcasts, online yoga, social distancing classes, etc. I loved it because it wasn't another "we're all in this together" message. It was a really positive message that even though you're stuck in quarantine, you can still be productive, creative, and you. It stuck with me, and what was great about it is that all the things they were showing these people doing at home, they were using Apple products. So many companies did ads during that time, but were not able to incorporate their product into the messaging or a call to action. Apple not only promoted their product to get it to sell, but they invoked emotion in their ad. Consumer expectations were already high pre-pandemic, but now consumer behavior has become almost 10 times more emotional and purpose-driven than before. With brands under such a critical eye, there are three key things that brands must have in their strategy to be successful, and that's authenticity, strong foundation, and data architecture. Today, I will address the changes in consumer behavior, expand on the three success traits, pivot marketing strategies, and measure your success. Emotional decision making is nothing new to the marketing game. In fact, it goes back to a study done by Brian Balfour, where he found that people make decisions based on four things: emotion, logic, motion, and reward, also known as the ELMR method. People have to trigger an emotion to make a decision, and then they use logic. The most impactful marketing campaigns do both. According to a Harvard study, 95% of our decisions are based in the subconscious. Think about something luxurious you've always wanted: a Louis Vuitton purse, maybe a Porsche. Now truly think about why you want it. Is your first thought quality or the usefulness? Or is it the feeling that you get when you think about being able to purchase that thing or having others see you with it? Luxury goods give us feelings of status or being elite. Triggering feelings doesn't have to all be positive or negative for that matter. In this time we're going through, customers just want to know we feel for them and understand. Marketing can still focus on the features of the product, but also sell the emotional response one can achieve by using that product. The pandemic reinforced the notion that brands need to be authentic, genuine, and unique in their strategies. Marketing messaging should not just be relevant, but also personalized to the circumstances of the audience. Customers should also have a seamless experience and right at their fingertips. So let's talk about how we do that. The first pillar is authenticity. This means that brands and their messaging have to be genuine and true in their values, causes they care about, and transparent. Brands that have generic messaging and canned marketing techniques will fail in this current environment. As an authentic brand, messaging should be aligned with your customer's current situation, values, and needs. Creating the connection between your brand and the consumer means understanding what influences their decisions. During the pandemic, a study was done by EY Future Consumer Index that identified 5 things that influence people on how they buy. These were in order of what was most important to most people: affordability, living within a budget; health first, the products they trust to be safe; planet first, minimizing the environmental impact they're having; society first, for the greater good; and experience first, the new brands and products. By understanding what your customer wants and building audiences, segmentations, and persona around this can better their experience with your brand and give light into your full customer journey. Users can tell when a brand is not being truthful and will point out discrepancies between what you said your values are and your actions. Next pillar is foundation. Consumers expect a seamless experience, which means that your journey must be anticipatory, frictionless, and connected. The bar is high, and surprisingly, people do not have short attention spans. Look at how we binge watch TV for hours. They have short decision-making spans. Having a good foundation means that your website should be optimized for your customer journey, and it should be very clear what you want them to do. This means eliminating a lot of the call to action paths that lead them all over the place on your site into one solid conversion path. Your social platform should also be consistent with your journey and your messaging. Creating these experiences requires companies to have a lot of data and technology at its core, which likely means that you're going to have to spend for a good, solid web development and tech team at your organization. So that brings us to our third pillar, having a good data stack. Even before the pandemic, consumers are conditioned to expect a personalized experience with brands, such as personalized ads and emails. But when COVID-19 hit, this accelerated overnight. Consumers want you to anticipate what they want, and they don't want to have to look for it. In order to do so, brands have to make sure that they have the correct data architecture in place. So here's a way to achieve this. Your first step is to audit all the data and tools and systems and connect how they work together. So audit your tools and systems at your organization, how you're utilizing them, how you're not utilizing them, and eliminate any overlap that you see. Then make a plan how you can integrate these systems so they all work together. Next, define business objectives. Establish your end goal and work backwards on how to get the correct data to the finish line. Then determine your KPIs for each business line, and then create the right tagging systems and documentation. Google Tag Manager, UTMs are just some examples. Then identify pain points across departments. Determine where your data holes are and find a solution on how to solve them. Then from there, select a data visualization tool, such as Domo, Datorama, Google Studio. Find one that meets the needs of your organization. Then integrate all the systems together and find out who's going to be responsible for managing those systems. That's very key important. Last is establishing reporting and analytics. Automate your reporting and keep with consistency. Add context to your reports, such as analysis of changes, dips, spikes, anything that might be affecting the data, such as campaigns that you're running, seasonality, all kinds of things. So this brings me on how to go about changing your current strategy. Pivoting marketing strategy is never easy. The best thing to do is make a plan around the 3 pillars I discussed and measure success based on interaction, engagement, and participation. Recently, I had a client who had to pivot marketing strategies from selling via third-party retailers to going direct to consumer. This was a big move that needed to happen gracefully because they didn't want to upset the third-party sellers, but also make a big splash in letting people know that they could buy direct now. In order to do this, I did an evaluation of the following steps. So you do an evaluation of their values versus the needs of their customer. Determine their current messaging align with those values, and if not, review and adjust content to reflect those values in line with the business objectives. Focus on being transparent and having visibility into the brand objectives. Remain sensitive to the needs and concerns of the customer. And avoid any messaging or marketing campaigns that might not be relevant to their customer. So after I did this evaluation of my steps that I follow, I determined that there needed to be a strong value add that they weren't offering currently, which was determined to be a free trial subscription, plus a discount for the first 100 customers to purchase a membership. One of the most successful ways to do something like this is to collect home addresses as well as emails on a landing page. With the digital fatigue many are facing now since the pandemic began, it's good to include traditional out-of-home print marketing to your strategy. This also helps make your customer database more accurate and not filled with a bunch of spam emails. Then you can also target demographically or with DMAs, geography-wise, to get more personalized experience with print and then your email and actually save costs overall. So in order to measure the success of pivoting strategies, you need to look at the following things: interaction, engagement, and participation. So with the client I mentioned earlier, I followed these KPIs that I highly recommend for any campaign. Customer acquisition cost, lifetime value of the customer, return on investment, return on ad spend, marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, landing page conversion rate, website visitors, social media engagement, and organic traffic. By looking at all of these, it gives a full picture of the customer journey and cycle. Data strategy should be a circle. Data should drive decisions that then prove the hypothesis that drive further decisions. So overall, people like to think that they are rational decision makers, but in reality, it's a mix of both emotional response and logical reasoning. When consumers interact with brands, whether it's interest, engagement, or participation, they are judging you on both to make a decision. So keep these pillars in mind for your next marketing strategies, and you can find success in this next normal. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. That's fascinating, and we really appreciate you taking the time to record that segment for us all the way from sunny Houston, which I hope the sun is shining today for you. Nicole's going to be joining me in a moment to answer a few questions, and one or two that you've posed in the Q&A as well, so thank you for participating already. And for those of you sitting at home and wondering, who else is on this call today, there are apparently over 700 of you. I have the figures here in front of me. The largest portion of that being EMEA with 429, the largest group, of course, being Germany. I had to say that. I'm surrounded by them. But we also have 142 people in North America, 81 people in Asia, 41 people in South America, and 3 people from Oceania, which it must be the middle of the night there. So thank you very much for joining us. We very much appreciate it. And I've got a question for all of you. This is our second poll of the day, please. So if this should be popping up on your screen as I speak. We heard about pivoting strategies there from Nicole. So my question to you is, have you adapted your marketing strategy in the last 12 months? Have you adapted your marketing strategy in the last 12 months? It will be interesting to see what you say, and it will be interesting, hopefully now, to be joined by Nicole. Nicole, are you there? She
Yes,
is.
can you hear me?
I can. I can actually hear an awful lot of you. So I'm just going to turn my earpiece down because that's unbelievably loud. If I can find the button, just try that again. There we go.
Hi.
Hey, that's better. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you very much. I'm a little bit deaf on one side now, but we can move on past that. That's no problem. So really enjoyed your piece there, Nicole. Thank you for taking the time to record that. And it's a really interesting subject. And of course, what you say about consumers wanting brands to almost think for them, to anticipate what it is that they want so that they share their allegiance. I mean, over this last period of time, you must also have seen a few, and without naming names, seen a few that have maybe messed up. Maybe you can share a few of those with us.
Yes. There's been some brands that have done really well, and there's been some brands that have messed up. The ones that have been the ones to mess up have either not acted quick enough to remove the ads that might have been insensitive. And the other ones are the ones that are a little bit cutesy and did things that they thought were a little clever, like using things like social distancing in their marketing. And when it comes to those kind of things, you have to be really careful with how you're using it. It kind of can cross a line. It's almost like using a natural disaster in your marketing and thinking that it's clever. So it's a really tough line to do, and I just would avoid it at all costs. So the ones that did really well were the ones that, like I talked about in my speech, like Apple, that talked about it and recognized that consumers were going through something, and then used it to talk about how they can use their product to really help them through that time.
Yeah, and I guess this is always, as it always is, a question of timing, good timing and bad timing to get your message out there. And as you rightly say, sometimes it's best to say nothing. And in fact, that maybe gives a greater result than saying the wrong thing. But we as consumers, of course, are famous for short attention span, and I think that's getting shorter as time goes on. There is so much more information being thrown at us. We talk about the attention span of a goldfish. I'm not entirely sure anybody's ever asked the goldfish, but let's assume that they're right and that we have a very short attention span. Can you give any practical examples of brands who've recognized this and have actually used it to their advantage?
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to it, like I talked about my speech, we tend to think that people have shorter attention spans, but what that actually is short decision making spans. It actually takes someone about 10 to 15 seconds to decide if they are going to be like positive about a brand or negative. It's a pretty quick decision making. There was actually a brand, Dollar Shave Club, if you've ever heard of it. I'm sure you have. It's been a big popular brand since about 2012. They did a really good job of putting out a video back in 2012 when they were making a big splash. And it actually got, I think it's at 24 million views already. They have over 1 million subscribers. But just in that time that they released that video, they got 12K subscribers within 48 hours, and it actually shut down the site. And the reason I talk about this one is because it was such a good use of the ELMR method that I talked about earlier in my speech. So it's an example that I use a lot because what they did was kind of put out a raunchy message where they kind of swore in their stuff, but then actually addressed something that consumers were going to have a problem with right away, which was, okay, this is $1 for razors. Are these even good razors? Are these going to like cut me? Are they going to break apart? And what they did was use emotion by saying, hey, our razors aren't good. They are bleeping great. And then immediately address, hey, this is how we do it. This is like, they've got a strip on them that is going to be able to keep up with your like Gillette razor and things like that. So they used emotion, and then they used the logic to immediately address what consumers were going to be concerned about. And I think they did an excellent job of catching people immediately. And people were like, all right, I'm going to buy this. I mean, as you could see, 12K people in 48 hours.
Yeah. And you did an excellent job there of using the word bleeping, so thank you for that. And just to, just to prove that we are completely live, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a question that's just landed on my iPad from Enrico in Italy. And his question to you is this, Nicole. Are all the statistics you are mentioning valid for the US market, or are they also valid for the EMEA markets?
They are across international.
Okay, that's good. So realistically, then you're seeing the same results in different territories in more or less the same way.
Yes, and I made sure, knowing that I was giving a speech in across to many people, to make sure that I was looking at statistics even outside of America.
There you go. That's why we got you on, Nicole. Thank you for that. And of course, when we think about the need for brands to be able to actually deliver that experience, and they need purposeful and more importantly, emotional content, how do you think they can best orchestrate all of the channels to achieve these goals?
Yeah, so when it comes to things like this, I think a lot of people, especially in the pandemic time, leaned a lot into digital. And I don't want people to forget about the fact that you need to mix your channels of digital and print. I know that people, as a digital marketer, of course, I love digital, and it has a pretty quick turnaround on ROAS, a return on ad spend, and you can see things immediate. However, when you're thinking about long-term strategy and really connecting with people and being emotional, you need to make sure that you're connecting all of your channels and not just reaching out with print. I definitely still like to do out-of-home things and mailers. Actually, when I worked for a pretty popular bank here in the States, I did a campaign through a big system, Adobe, and I matched email addresses to actual home addresses when we were launching a branch, and made sure to not only reach out to them through digital channels, but actually went into their mailers and was like, hey, I know we're like a hometown branch. We might be big, but we're in your hometown. So definitely make sure to be not just concentrating on one channel. And I say that for people who are just doing print too. Make sure that you're mixing.
And how that's great. I mean, how do you keep track of that? I mean, is there a certain platform that you use for tracking? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so like I said, I used Adobe for that kind of messaging, but there are a few platforms that I definitely believe in. I think that you need to have definitely an ESP, so your email marketing system, whether that's Adobe or MailChimp or whatever you're using. You need a data visualization tool. So things like Domo is a big popular one, or Datorama with Salesforce. Absolutely be utilizing Google Analytics, especially because it's a free platform to be using. So you don't have to spend a bunch of money for your analytics. And another big one that I'm a big fan of is Site Improve, which looks at your SEO, but also your ADA compliance on your website. And a lot of people don't think about ADA compliance outside of, an actual building or things that you need to do. But ADA is huge with what you need to be doing on your websites.
Absolutely. And a wise man once said to me, Nicole, that if you can measure it, you can manage it. So what do you do in terms of measurements? What KPIs do you think are most important in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between vanity metrics and, actual actionable metrics. And I think both are important, but the most important KPI I would concentrate on is lifetime value of a customer. So, you want to make sure that you're not only doing your acquisition, but also retention. You don't want to just be bringing people in and then forgetting about them. You need to make sure that you are keeping up with your customers and giving them things like rewards programs and retention campaigns. And, don't just bring people in the door and then only concentrate on the people that you don't have yet. Take care of your customers.
Well, there are wise words there, Nicole, indeed. And thank you so much for coming on with us this morning so early. I know it's early in Houston. So, and hopefully I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind at all popping back a bit later on for a bit of a joint panel at the end of the show. We've got a few more questions for you. I've seen they've been pinging in. So if you could come back and join us, that would be lovely.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. We'll see you later on. And before we go any further, I've got the results. Somebody's just whispered in my ear. The poll results are ready. So let's have a look and see the results of our question. How many of you changed your marketing strategy in the last 12 months? Well, that's I would say, and I'm an optimist looking at that, so that's 40%, 36%, 76% yes in some shape or form, 24% no. So that's an interesting answer, but I think that just goes to show that this last 12 months has been curious for many reasons, and there's lots of you on the move there, and some of you may be sitting and waiting for the storm to abate, but we shall see. But we'll move on. So thank you very much for answering our question there. And I'm now delighted to be joined by my guest, Peter Wolf, who is sitting right next to me. Peter, good afternoon. Peter is Senior Vice President of Canon Production Printing Products EMEA, and we haven't seen each other for a while, have we?
No, we haven't.
It's a silly question, but what have you been doing for the last year?
Me?
Yeah, what's been happening?
Working more, personally working more than ever, like the whole team here at Canon.
Yeah.
Because we really have seen the impact of the digitalization in the business of our customers and clients, whether it was in publishing, business communications or promotional communication. And we have seen that digitalization has taken place in the business processes of our customers, the production processes and the marketing and communication area. And that certainly has accelerated the need for more speed, for flexibility and personalization in print. But the interesting thing is we also have seen that we have different groups of customers. So we had early starters, customers who have invested into digital printing technologies, who have built up concept and have implemented that in their business. So they have really benefited from the last 12, 18 months, I would say. Then we have seen a group which has immediately seen the advantage and opportunity in the situation which we have been in. They have often much faster than we have expected made decisions and decided to implement new things. And then there's like always a third group of customers and companies who are more reluctant to immediately jump in and wait a bit longer, which is also fine. But that was what has happened the last year to us.
Well, and I guess the poll results that we've just seen there almost play that out, don't they? That there is always that sort of willingness or unwillingness to move in case you make the wrong move. But sometimes not moving at all is the wrong move. And you've had the time, I know you've been a busy man over the last 12 months, but you've had the time, I guess, a little bit more in isolation to study and see if there are any specific trends which you're seeing now in the promotional market, anything that you see that would appeal to our audience today?
Yeah, I think when we look to the promotion segment, digital communication, digital marketing is the standard. This is this is widely accepted in the industry. We as Canon see a great opportunity to show the industry which benefits modern innovative printing technologies can bring to their business and how you can use them effectively. And when you look back to the last forums we have made, I think an overarching topic was the power of print and the emotional experience and the trust physical experiences can really generate. And well, we have listened to Nicole and what she has said, and also here you can see the importance of seamless integration and in the whole communication process and marketing process of companies. So I really think that integrating print in the omni-channel strategy is for us the way forward, and this is where we will work on.
Yeah, and of course, this is what the forum is all about this year.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
I love the word orchestrating because it suggests, and I've got this vision in my head of the choir and the orchestra and everybody playing the right tune at the same time, which would be good because at times over the years that music has happened at slightly different points, shall we say. It feels as though it's lining up more, certainly from an external perspective when you look. And of course, the situation that's happened to us all, has forced some changes within that. But you're quite unique at Canon for hosting an event like this, an event which is really quite removed, I guess, from your role in the industry as a technology vendor. You're almost the thought leaders here, more than the manufacturers. Tell me why you do this.
Yes, I agree with you. On a first glance, it might wonder why we are doing this, because our core business, printing technologies and delivering solutions to customers, is not standing into the center of this event. But we at Canon, we really believe in the triangle of expertise. This is how we call the collaboration between print service providers, print buyers, so their customers, and us together with their partners. And I really believe that we all together are the best team to move the industry forward. And we have also, at the beginning of the year, we have commissioned a report among print buyers to understand a bit better their perception of print and the role of print in the marketing mix. And what we found out is quite a big gap of knowledge in marketing teams, which is not really a surprise. But we were also very impressed by the request of more than 90% of print buyers that they expect from their print supplier more education and support in how to integrate print better into the total marketing mix. And this is what this forum is about, delivering a platform for across the whole value chain of promotional communication, whether it's brand or marketeers, agencies, print buyers. And that's the reason why we are hosting this already for the fourth time.
And it's quite unique. I don't think I've seen anything like this in my sort of trotting around the world to various events over the last few years, or certainly the previous 2 years to that. It's a unique location. It's a wonderful location. You have this fantastic exhibition centre that's been created here. It's quite hard for you, I guess, at home. I understand that to understand what this place is if you haven't been before, but maybe Peter, you can draw a picture for our viewers today of where exactly we're sitting and what's here.
Yeah, so we are first of all here in the location of Canon in Poing near Munich, which we call the center of the commercial printing within the Canon Group. We have a second location in Venlo in the Netherlands. And we here in Poing in Munich, we have 5,000 square meters as a customer experience and center and as a showroom. And when you then imagine that next week at FESPA in Amsterdam, we will have our first physical exhibition after 2 years, and that within the last 2 years we were in the collaboration with our customers heavily depending on a location like that, then you can imagine how important it was. These 5,000 square meters where we can present solutions, where we can present customer cases, finishing lines together with our partners. That has been a very important location, even more than in the years before.
Absolutely, and it also serves excellent coffee, just in case anybody's interested.
I will let them know.
So in the last forum, when we were last talking, we talked a lot about programmatic print, the seamless integration of highly customized print into the customer journey. And I guess that's a core component of orchestration, what we're talking about. So tell me, is there anything new that you're allowed to share with me happening at Canon on this topic since we last spoke?
Well, first of all, we certainly continued working in many projects with our customers because, as I said before, this topic is really picking up. It's becoming more and more important. And I'm very happy that we as Canon really started early engaging us in programmatic print. But yes, we also continued working on it with partners. At the beginning of the year, we teamed up with a well-known global media platform, The Drum, from the UK. And since then, we are working with them on a fantastic project, which is called the Creative Class 2021. But, well, I know the agenda and I know that this will be later another topic for us. So therefore, I don't want to tell you too much now.
I see what you did there. You've set up the trailer beautifully. Thank you for that.
Yes.
And thank you, a massive thank you really, Peter, and to everybody at Canon for hosting this fantastic programme today. It's always a joy to come and join you here. I was so disappointed not to be able to make it in person last year, but even still sitting in my bedroom at home, I could feel the love. So it's nice to be back in the centre of things. And really, I guess you've missed it too. I mean, maybe you'd like to take a moment if you've got any personal thoughts that you'd like to give to our audience today.
Yeah, well, for us it's great that you are here again and that we have the Future Promotion Forum again. The only thing I can say is I've spoken about the triangle of expertise. I have told you how important it is that we have the collaboration with our customers, the print service providers, and with print buyers together with us and our partners. So if you have any idea how we can improve the forum, we are really living from your contribution, from your involvement. Let us know what you want to be, what you want to have here, and let us also know if you want to be on stage here. And then maybe next year you can also be an active part of the next Future Promotion Forum.
There you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. That's an invite for Peter for next year. So we hope to have everybody here next year, which would be wonderful. And thank you for joining me today. It's lovely to see you, as always. Really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, but thank you for joining us. And of course, you heard there Peter talking a little bit about the Creative Class of 2021, which Canon ran earlier on this year with The Drum. Let's get a first insight into what this is all about with a video.
The Class of 21 was a joint venture between Canon and The Drum to really help a group of people who had been really badly affected by the weird period we've just lived through. Can you imagine what it'd be like being a student, a particularly creative student? You've spent your whole educational life building up to one moment, which is your degree show. But for the cohort of students over 2020 and 21, many of them had that opportunity lost because the degree shows, of course, were cancelled. So we were worried that actually this group could become a bit of a lost generation. So the Class of 2021 was to really give them a chance to sort of get onto the career ladder, help them get jobs, become known, and also help the industry find some really great talent.
I am Emma Bentley. I just graduated from the University of Gloucestershire and I studied advertising.
Hi Emma.
Hello. I came across the Class of 2021 online, but I also mentioned it to my course leader and he already knew about it. He told me to go for it. He sent round an email to everyone telling them to just put your work forward, put your work out there. I thought it was a great initiative from the get-go, sort of like a shout out to all of us students that were leaving, that we haven't been forgotten about. I know a lot of university degree shows didn't get to actually happen this year, and this really allowed us to be seen by way more people, especially people that read The Drum, which is huge.
My name is Emma Critchley-Lloyd. I am the founder of Big Little London. We are a digital marketing agency for small businesses, startups, scale-ups, independents. We specialise in PR, social, brand strategy and influencer marketing.
And how did you find out about the Class of 2021 exhibition?
It was an email through just the normal Drum newsletters that come through. It's the lucky one that I opened that day. It was timely. It was really good.
That's what you're right.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
So, Kathy, thanks for joining us. We are here really to talk about this joint venture between Canon and the Drum. And I think both Canon and the Drum are a bit concerned that this really generation could become a lost generation.
What we wanted to do is we wanted to help those students to get transparency towards that creative industry. And the way we decided to do it was actually through the digital platform, through the Creative Class Hub of 2021, and then open that up into the creative industry to find those students and to find that fantastic talent.
On one hand, we wanted to sort of take the idea of the physical degree show, which had been cancelled, and try to do a virtual version of that. But can you give us a bit more of the detail about actually how it worked in practice?
The idea was that basically you have a space. As a student, you can upload your artifacts, you can present yourself. And in the end, what you have is a beautiful picture of like over almost 70 students with their artifacts, with thumbnails of their artifacts, where you can actually then look and see what they have to offer and what's behind what they've created.
So one of the things that you received was a printed student pack.
Yeah.
How did you feel when that arrived?
Oh, first of all, it's adorable. It was such a good morning when this came in the post because I had sort of forgotten about it since submitting it. And then when it came, I saw the little Canon sign at the bottom of the envelope and me and my mom opened it together. And it was just so special because one, I love anything with my name on it. I didn't really know what it would look like, and to have the individual sheets, it just made it even more better because I knew that I'd be able to one day present these to people and then also lay it out as a whole. Just having something physically to hand, being able to show my mom even, it just made myself so proud to see my work just physically.
Now, let's have a look at the exhibition itself. So how did you find the user experience, sort of the way that it was broken down? So we had like the word.
Yeah, I really loved the categories, so you could filter by each of them. And then also when you click on, you can actually go and view more about the work, about the campaign, you know, how well have they designed it, but also how well can they write and explain and articulate their thinking behind it as well.
In such a short amount of words as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually using the data that is relevant to that particular user and being able to turn that into something, be it a digital message or a printed message.
You just can't take away from the experience of having something printed in your hand and feeling the quality of the paper, and just it's just different experience to seeing something online. There's something really lovely about having an excuse to go away from your laptop. And even the Drum magazines, I've just moved house and there's like loads of them that I've still kept for whatever reason, I don't know, but you never know when you just want to have that moment to yourself to read back on some of them. So there is definitely still a role for it, which is great because obviously everyone is now thinking about right here, right now, digital, quick, fast, throw away, almost disposable content in a way, but there's something that's really long lasting about print.
And I also think the kids themselves, or the students taking part, were probably really thrilled to receive physical printouts of their work, because I'm sure many of them probably would never have seen that work in physical form before.
Introducing, if you like, print as a completely new concept to like that generation, and it was just actually so lovely to see the feedback that we got from them, because one of the ideas with the personalized student print pack was that they would have something to show a potential employer or somebody they would potentially like to market themselves towards. That's actually the way they perceived it as well. It's almost like a business card, and this was just such a lovely refresher.
I've always thought of print as sort of that main point, but this just makes me sort of realise print is definitely not dead. There's so much value in print, and also just holding print. It just gives you that feeling, like that sort of visceral experience.
what was interesting was the themes that were coming through, and you see that this is a generation who are very into the societal themes, environmental themes, speaking out. And I think that was very striking, actually, to see how strongly they feel about certain things and how they put it out there with their art and with their creativity.
There was so much that people were drawing on from their own personal experiences and turning that into something really amazing and creative. I just loved seeing their spin on just everyday things that they've experienced and just turning that into something that's, really amazing.
Now, there was one piece of work that caught your eye in the exhibition. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and what action did you take as a result?
Yeah, so there was one particular student that took on a brief surrounding body positivity, and it was a full 360 campaign. She designed her own font, she created an out-of-home ad, she'd created tube ads going up the escalators. She had considered every single touch point at that particular time. Whilst we were looking, we knew we were looking for a future, not so distant future, but maybe in about 6 months' time we'd be ready to engage with her and bring her on as some help.
That's brilliant. Well, that's certainly what we hope to achieve with the exhibition, was to connect.
About the Class of 2021 exhibition, all the work of the students were amazing. I think in the future we should carry on just showcasing our students and helping them get in, because it is hard to get in, and this was a great way of making our names known.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thank you very much.
I mean, that really was just an amazing piece of video, and I saw that for the first time yesterday, and seen it again a couple of times today, and seen it again just now with you, and it still makes me feel a little bit emotional, and how wonderful that such a positive thing could have come out of such a terrible situation that we've all found ourselves in over the last 12 to 18 months, that print still has that emotional connection with people. It's wonderful to see. And I'm joined, as you can see, on stage by my guests for the next section of the show. Gordon's a little bit worried because I told him at dinner last night that as he was being rude to me, I had to introduce him today. So he's slightly worried about what I'm about to say, but trust me, I'll keep it professional. Gordon Young is one of the world's longest-serving editors in the marketing business. He co-founded The Drum in 1985, which has grown into one of the world's largest marketing platforms. Gordon has been the driving force behind The Drum's Class of 2021, the virtual exhibition in partnership with Canon. And also joining me is my wonderful friend Kathy Bittner, Strategic Business Development Manager for Canon Commercial Print. She's the founding member of this Canon Future Promotion and also project lead for the Canon Class of 2021. Good afternoon, both.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
Doing good.
Good. Was that okay?
That intro was excellent.
Yeah, you can call the lawyers off.
That.
Excellent.
Yeah,
That's good. Amazing project. It really is, genuinely. I think it will have touched a lot of people out there today, but I'm really interested to know how the idea for this came about.
Well, the idea, I suppose, was really inspired by, two issues. First of all, Canon had a challenge in terms of they wanted to communicate the benefits of programmatic print, and obviously we're aware of this challenge amongst the young creative community who'd missed all their degree shows. So it's really, there's three objectives, I suppose, we're looking at. First of all, our readers aren't really interested in tech for tech's sake. What our readers are interested in is things and tools they can actually use and how technology can be applied. So we wanted to give an example of a really good application of programmatic. There's also an issue around print versus digital. Our view, they're not mutually exclusive. Print in this new age can definitely augment digital. So we wanted to tell that story as well and explain how print can actually make your digital campaign or your campaign more effective. Another thing was what you touched on in the intro. It's about the emotion. Print's a very emotional thing, and I think that's where what the film brought out. I mean, I agree. It was a bit of a tearjerker there when the young student could show her work to her mum, and it was probably the first time she'd actually seen her work printed out in a professional way. So that was actually really nice. So it's to remind people that actually what print can bring to this sort of new world is good old-fashioned emotion.
Well, and we've been talking about that for a few years now, and more especially here at the Future Promotion Forum, about that emotional connection with print. And I guess sometimes you have to lose something in order to find the true value in it. And so this period of time has certainly done that, and the video brought that home really, really well. But I guess you didn't just throw it together and decide that you were going to do programmatic print project. How did this, what are the nuts and bolts behind all of this?
Well, the nuts and bolts, and there were lots of various nuts and bolts. It's like a giant digital Meccano set. But really, the main issue, to be honest, wasn't so much nuts and bolts, but it's about telling a story. That's what we wanted to do, was create a very, very strong narrative, where a lot of the benefits of this became very clear through that narrative. It's a bit like the Little Red Riding Hood, for example. So Little Red Riding Hood was not about the benefits of having a woodcutter with an axe on hand. The story was really about don't talk to strangers. And to us, we had programmatic in our camp, but really the story was about these students who could miss out on a great career because of the pandemic. It was a hellish the scenario for them. They'd worked all their lives through their primary education, their secondary education, and their big moment they're going to miss it, and that was a tragedy. So that was really the story we wanted to tell and say, actually, how can using programmatic print help them find jobs?
And we've seen the emotion clearly in the student featured in the video there, but it must have been a joy to work with some of these students over the course of this project. And I guess they didn't necessarily know each other, but now maybe they've been drawn together by this project. And of course, collaboration is something that particular industry feeds on. So you've drawn that together beautifully.
Yeah, and collaboration with other thing. This is obviously working very closely with Canon. We're working very closely with our data scientists and our print production teams, and it's all very technical on one hand. Our industry is getting more technical. But the other sort of message we wanted to say is also about creativity. And really this next generation of students coming through are really the future of our business, because you can have the best tech in the world or the best systems in the world, but unless you have the people with great ideas to use it, it's not going to be as effective as it could be. And so that's why we really wanted to champion students and also sort of bring them into the Canon ecosystem, if you like. Canon's not just about imagery, it's also about print. And actually how we can reimagine print for the new age.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a beautiful link to Kathy. And you lead this project out on behalf of Canon. It was a great concept and clearly is working beautifully. But why was it so important for Canon to do a project such as this?
Yeah, I mean, as Gordon said, we found each other, I suppose, because we have programmatic print that we believe is a concept that will bring personalised print into the customer journey at the time when that customer is receptive to it, or that person is receptive to it. And both of us found, we're looking for something. The Drum were looking for something innovative. Like they said, that's an interesting concept for their target group, and we said we really wanted to. Try it out. So we wanted to, and the fact that the Drum actually came back and said, well, let's try it out. Let's use programmatic print as the vehicle, but let's actually do something that's a lot more purposeful with the students. That was just like the magic combination, if you like. So, I mean, our secondary, I suppose, objective was basically we wanted to collaborate with the Drum, with our print service provider. We wanted to build this customer journey. We wanted to implement the customer journey and to find out what we can learn from it, and what learnings we can take them back to our customers and to marketers.
And so on that basis, how do you think it's worked?
It was fabulous. I mean, we learned so many more things than we ever dreamed of, and we got so much more of this project than we ever dreamed of. And one of them was definitely some of those statements that came in the video. We didn't dream in our wildest dreams that we would touch a student with what we were doing. But we learned. I mean, from a Canon point of view, our team, we learned so much about digital channels and the tactics of digital marketing, which we didn't have insights to before. And on the other hand, we also became aware of what we could bring to the party. So we were actually making the awareness of print in general and the specifics of digital print. We were bringing that to the party with our print service provider together, and enlightening digital marketeers about what's possible. So yeah.
And you've got some interesting results, I think, to share with us. Is that right?
Yeah, we did. In the first leg of the journey, if you like, we had to actually market the hub basically to the creatives. So, as the first touch point was email. So we sent email to 28,000 people, and one of them actually read the email, as we saw. So email works. But we decided then we wanted the response from the email. If you can see the infographic, the response from the email overall was what you would expect. We got a certain amount of people onto the hub, but then we said we want to trigger print at this point then in the journey and see, can we uplift that number of registrations. And so we sent then 2,800 printed postcards to those people who had already got the emails, and we were able to then increase the number of registrations onto the hub by the conversion rate was 6.5 times better. So it really was the orchestration at that point. And I mean, we have to say, Gordon, I think that, you know, mailing out is not really something that the Drum would do normally. I mean, you have a lot of email contacts for your target group, but not so many mail addresses. So that was the one thing. And the second thing, we were mailing out at a time when everybody was in lockdown, so people weren't actually in the office. So it was a bit of a, you know, hope and pray. But actually, the mailer did really, really well from what we can.
And you
decipher.
mentioned it there, you know, that it was a 6.5 times higher conversion rate when they engaged with the print asset in addition to EDM. So what kind of print asset did you actually send at that point to the UK?
It was a very simple postcard. Just a very simple postcard. It had an image of the class, the icon from the project, and like, we didn't know very much about the people. We knew the first name of the person, and we knew where in the district or in the town that they were. So we just used the location, and that's a very simple personalisation at that point.
And Gordon, you've obviously seen the results of this, which have been, you know, I think spectacular, really, to say the least. What does the Drum think about this?
Well, the Drum is very exciting. I mean, this is the first time we'd actually used programmatic print in this way, and it's, you know, I think the interesting thing about the study is I think it proves it can work for relatively small campaigns, because you usually think of programmatic as you know getting access to vast amounts of data. But I think if you can make it really relevant and really personalise it, you can actually get a return on much smaller campaigns and groups as well. So we found it really exciting, and I think it's a reminder to us that this sort of campaign can actually make a real difference in people's lives. You tend to forget in our business that actually what we do does impact on real people and real lives. At the end of the data is basically people. And I think when you're sort of working in much smaller, more concentrated groups on a very specific issue like this, that really does bring it home to you. We really did want to help these students into employment, find work. So that point of view, it felt very worthwhile.
Do you think it's an interesting point that you made there? Because do you think that the world's obsession to a certain extent with data and data management has dehumanized the actual target of that approach, which of course is the human being at the end of it? Do you feel as though this is rehumanizing it in a certain way?
I think there definitely has been a tendency for people to work in much bigger volumes. But however, I think specifically when it comes to using physical print, it's so much more tactile. You're involving so many more of the senses. I think naturally you're going to be creating a much more human experience. And unless you get the personalisation right, you're probably going to get the ROI that justifies it.
Yeah.
So I think if you're sort of incorporating print into the sort of the mix, you're going to make a much more effort to create a much more human experience.
Absolutely, and it's making a really strong case for that as well, isn't it? So, and Kathy, I guess you can look at these results now and interpret them and see that the better engagement that you get with print compared to, say, email.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if I could just mention the second, obviously the journey went on. Then when we got when the creatives basically came to the hub, they registered on the hub. So then we had some more data on them. We had a home address, or at least an address at that point. So what we did then was there was a time lapse between the hub going live and when it was open for registrations, obviously beforehand, and then at some point it went live. So they were informed again by email and by print. Okay, we're ready for you now. Come back and enjoy the students. And again, that's where we triggered the second email and print point. And at that point, we were able to do a little bit more sophisticated printing. So what we did was we sent a postcard package, and we were able to relate that to the to the categories that the creatives were actually able to choose. So when they actually went on, they chose certain categories that they were interested in. So we were able to be a little bit more contextual in what we were sending. So, and that showed, as I said, we saw that the engagement rate, and that I think was the overall learning for us, for both of us, was when we employed and when we interspersed the channels, that the engagement rate was so much more purposeful, so that people were actually going on there. They were looking at a lot of pages, and they seemed to be looking in a very purposeful way at certain things.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I guess, and this is for both of you really, but Gordon, maybe if you'd like to start, you used a printed postcard. It was relatively low in terms of personalisation. I'm guessing that was deliberate, but also did that change? Did that approach change as the customer journey carried on?
Yeah, it did, because one of the big challenges was we didn't have, because of the pandemic, and we actually do a lot of print mailing, actually, the Drum, but we haven't done any as much this year because no one's in the offices. So the challenge was we needed to get the recipients to trust us enough to share their home addresses. And so there's various stages where we had the first postcard, and then the second was a bit more personalisation. And then do you want to talk about the third postcard, or shall I do that for you?
Yeah, go ahead, no problem.
But the third postcard was actually, the third pack was then based on the people the creatives had looked at on the website. And that was quite interesting for the creatives themselves, because suddenly we're relating, what they're doing online to what they're physically receiving in the post. And although that does happen, it doesn't usually happen as overtly as that.
No.
So I think that surprise, would have impacted on them, and would have then, sparked more curiosity, and also served to remind them actually, print is actually a sort of quite a powerful digital-based tool. So it's a really good message to send them and get them engaged.
I think this is where, and this campaign highlights it beautifully, that when you join all those dots together, you actually bring people into the decision-making process that are usually the recipient rather than the creator. So I suspect that the creatives involved in this have never actually been involved in, other than the receipt of, the creation of. So how did that change their perspective in terms of the physical material? Did they see it in a different light?
I definitely think they did. I think one of the challenges in our industry as a whole is we're still quite siloed. So you have the people who buy into print side, and then you have the digital natives who think the whole world's digital. What we're saying is, look, these two camps should converge. There's no reason, if you're in a digital business, you should not be embracing print. And also, if you're in a traditional print-based business, you should not be using data more effectively to personalise your print to make it more efficient. So it's actually bringing these two worlds together. And I think for a lot of our target market, who many of them are quite old-style creative directors, it's fair to say, I think this hopefully helps them sort of start that journey to recognising that the power of digital, and it helps the digital people say actually print is still relevant.
Well, everything has a tipping point, doesn't it, in terms of your understanding of it, and that moment where you go, I hadn't thought of that. And I guess this is an opportunity to bring some of those old school people, as you say, into the new school and go, do you know what? We should have done this sooner. Are you seeing that already?
Well, absolutely. I mean, and I'll be honest with you that I myself, enjoyed the process, because again, the Drum hadn't used it, and now even at the Drum, we're beginning to think actually is there other opportunities we can do to personalise our publications in the future. I've had a tour. We're coming to you today from the Experience Centre at Canon, and the sort of kit here is absolutely amazing. And I think anybody, any digital native or any sort of young student who's grown up in this digital sort of world, coming here to sort of see how they can apply these digital learnings to create physical objects, would be really excited by what the future holds for print.
Make a note, Kathy. Next year, Future Promotion Forum, youth. If TED do it, we can do it. So, Kathy, I understand it now. I'm learning as I go along here, as I often do, and I understand the rationale behind the print touch points. So, tell me a little bit about the orchestration with the digital channels and how you brought it all together.
Well, I mean, there was basically, maybe I'll just talk about the third point. Then, I mean, obviously, then when people had experienced and people met on the hub and stuff, we wanted to get feedback. Yeah. So, and that's always something I think every event and every company needs to do after every campaign, you want to get feedback from the customer. So there we did the A/B test. So we said, okay, half of the group are going to get an email with the survey and half of the group are going to get a print package. And it proved what we had heard from many other studies, I suppose, but like we have an infographic, I think, for the third one. Like we had 3 times as much response on the print as we did on the email. So as I said, I mean, that's orchestration. That's where we're coming from, I suppose, today. It's not to say one is better than the other or whatever. We need both, and we wanted to learn what is the right time to trigger which one, and how can we use them most cleverly? Because it was about also then like, okay, what can that piece of print look like? How should it, it needs to be produced, it needs to be posted, it needs to be efficient. So there were so many different aspects, but I think we'll talk about that as the show goes on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, it's fascinating, really. And coming to this sort of relatively new understanding the campaign over the last couple of days and seeing really the immediacy, I guess, of the impact of it, as the video showed. What's been the biggest takeaway, do you think, Gordon, for your team at the Drum from this campaign?
I mean, I think I sort of touched on that a bit in the video. I think the biggest takeaway for me really is how important it is to ensure the teams are working more closely together. Mm-hmm. So we've got a bit of a traditional print production team who specialise in print, and then the other extreme you have our automated marketing team and our data science team. They don't normally talk, to be honest. But this project, they really were working very, very closely together. And I think the big takeaway for me is going forward that any company with a print capability or I've got a print production team is going to have a very real competitive advantage over a pure digital business. So I would sort of say to any marketing agency or design company listening, you really want to look at making sure you're up to strength in terms of understanding your print production. Because there's no doubt print is going to have a huge role to play going forward. Absolutely. You heard it here first, by the way. Don't argue with a Glaswegian. He knows what he's talking about. And Kathy, for you, the biggest learning for Canon?
Yeah, I think it's we were able to prove the opportunities that we believe with programmatic print. I think we proved that we were able to prove that they're valuable and valid. I think that was one of the most important things. And the second thing, like you said, Gordon, with the collaboration is that we believe there's a huge opportunity for us as Canon with our print service providers to approach and to onboard digital marketeers to get this orchestration going. I mean, I think that's really exciting.
There's so much more I'd love to ask you both. I could sit here all afternoon. We are unfortunately governed by time, but thank you both.
And before we go, we should say that the hub is still live.
Absolutely.
If anybody wants to look at it, it's still there for them.
Thank you very much. Doing my job for me. Appreciate it. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Kathy, for joining me. I think you're both going to come back and join me later on for the big panel Q&A. But for the time being, thank you very much indeed. There's obviously loads that we need to talk about today. We're only going to be able to get through so much of it, I guess. But the backbone, as we've talked about for programmatic print, is digital printing and the development of these end-to-end solutions that we've heard a little bit about already. This is at the heart of everything that Canon's doing. So we've got a little video. Sit back, enjoy it for 2 minutes, and I'm going to magically reappear in a different location. Enjoy the video.
We live in a world full of inspiration and wonder, where new innovations make the everyday extraordinary. As the world leader in professional imaging, our technology empowers people to capture the relevant and the remarkable. And make it visible and shareable. Digital print offers infinite possibilities. Personal, pertinent, flexible, and data-driven. That's why we're always pushing further and aiming higher. We won't rest until smart is smarter, fast is faster, and sharp is sharper. Our passion for print means we will provide the best solution for you, whether that's on roll, on sheets, or on large format. Let's take your business into the digital future with a solution that's tailored to your specific needs and a dedicated team to guide you on your way. Because Because we love to see brands forging an identity that sets them apart. People envisaging their ideal living space. Messages that matter. A world full of colour. And everyone having the chance to print the story they want to share with the world. Rethink print. Embrace the possibilities of technology. Make inspiration happen. Let's print beyond limits.
Welcome back. You've magically joined me in a different part of the Customer Experience Centre here in Poing. I've dropped over here into the exhibition where we're showing some of the works from the students that we were talking about from the class of 2021. And it's absolutely fabulous to be able to see this live and touch it and enjoy the art that's been created for us. It really is a fabulous program that these guys have been involved in, and we've got 2 students' work here that we're looking at today we're very lucky to have on our walls. So we've got Joshua Akekwe here, who has produced some fantastic images for us. Very, very different style. But the thing that's most interesting, I guess, from a Canon perspective, is that it's printed on so many different materials. We've got plexiglass here. We've got cardboard here. This is actually corrugated. You can't see this from the camera, but it's corrugated cardboard that's printed on. Beautiful images. Joshua's done an amazing job, and I know he was delighted to be part of the program. And over here, of course, we've got Matilda. And Matilda will be joining us later on in the show. But Matilda Murley, who's studying at Westminster University, very different again in terms of her take on things. Of course, art is in the eye of the beholder. But what we have, the same thing again, is the printed materials here. There's actually stone here that she's printed on. It's absolutely amazing. And we're going to hear a little bit now from Matilda.
Hello, my name is Matilde. I'm 26 years old and I'm Italian. I'm at my 3rd year of illustration at the University of Westminster, London. And I believe that art is a reflection of who you are and what you feel in a certain moment of your life, with joys and fears. And for me, art has always been a way to understand the difficulties of my of past experiences that I lived through and that I survived from, and that they made you who you are at present. And my artworks, they reproduce the incomprehensions of my mind, the chaotic thoughts, and the effort to survive from reality and not only escape from it. The use of colors, high saturations, and collage from photography, they reproduce and replicate that scream of help.
It's lovely to hear from Matilda there. Thank you. And she will be joining us a little bit later on in the show, as I mentioned. We've got our 3rd poll for you now, ladies and gentlemen. So and it's a tricky one, this, because art is so subjective. There isn't a winner. There isn't a loser. This isn't a competition. We just want to hear from you which style you prefer. Are you a fan of Joshua or are you a fan of Matilda? Please join in the vote, I should say, and we'll reveal those results later on in the show. But for now, we've got a little break. We've got a 5-minute interval, give you a chance to go away and refresh your cup of coffee or cup of tea, or maybe something stronger if it's later in the evening for you, or maybe some breakfast if it's early in the morning. But we'll be back on the other side of this interval. We'll see you then. Welcome back. That was quick. 5 minutes seems to have gone by in the blink of an eye, but we're back for what we lovingly call the second half. You are more than welcome, and I hope you all enjoying the show so far. Certainly a lot more content to come, not least of which is our next speaker, who I'm delighted to introduce. Ludovic Martin has been working in the web-to-print industry since the year 2000. He's driven multiple publishing platform projects, running Quark Express Server and InDesign Server for companies like Peugeot or Orange ISP. In 2012, Ludovic joined online printer Exaprint as Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer, where he worked on increasing online sales and defining new strategies for resellers, and also the geographical expansion in Europe for 5 years. When Exaprint joined the Simpress Group in 2015, Ludovic became stakeholder in the mass customization platform. For more than 3 years now, Ludovic Martin is working as an independent consultant in the e-commerce strategy and web-to-print projects. He's also collaborating on the user experience design of the printing marketplace L'Imprimerie Européenne. In parallel, since 2009, Ludovic is also editing Print.watch, a blog about web-to-print. He's published various books and market studies on the European landscape of online printing. Sit back, relax, and let's hear from Ludovic.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to this webinar from Canon. I'm Ludovic Martin. I'm independent consultant in web-to-print and e-commerce, and I'm also blogger publishing Print.watch blog about online printing industry and e-commerce. So today I'm going to talk about how printing can be more efficient than online advertising in the e-commerce funnel. So what's happening today after the COVID crisis? We saw during this crisis that e-commerce has boomed both in B2C and B2B thanks to remote working, for example, that has accelerated the digital transformation. And today, even in B2B environment, purchasers are looking for online solution for their procurement. And as a consequence, the number of e-commerce stores has increased at a dramatic speed during the COVID crisis. For example, in France, during the 2020 year, you had more than 17,000 additional sites created. So that's quite good news, but at the same time, it has a tremendous consequence on the advertising industry. As you have more advertisers on the market, the consequence is the advertising space available on the market is not extensible. So the consequence is that your costs are increasing because you have more competition. And also you have more advertising on social media, on Google, and so on. And the consequence is that customers are today suffering what scientists are calling the ad fatigue. It means that there are too many ads available on websites, on newspapers, online, or social media. So people are tired by this, so they develop what they call banner blindness. Their brain is hiding banners and ads. Also, they are suffering questions of privacy because they understand they are tracked on different devices they used. And new features like what's happening in iOS 14 is preventing from tracking for customers. So they're understanding that advertising becomes too intrusive. And that period has revealed some weaknesses of digital marketing. For example, what I was talking just before is non-respect of user privacy. People understand that they are tracked everywhere. You even see advertising from Apple about this. Things that were on their devices, you are not tracked compared to others. The bid model is leading to explosive costs because of this competition. So lead acquisition on digital marketing is costing higher and higher. You also have question of fraud. Many of clicks on banners and videos and so on are generated by robots. And this is a real problem because it participates to the increase of costs And also, what is complex today, that at the origin it was easy for someone to create campaigns on Google Ads or Facebook Ads, but now it's really complex. You can lose a lot of money, and if you want to be efficient, it's really technical and hard. So you need to hire people that are trained and that are costing a lot, and it's a kind of black box syndrome. And one of the latest weakness is the recent taxes that government put on GAFA, especially on Google. And concerning advertising, these taxes has been transferred directly to advertisers, so they are paying 2 or 3% more because of these taxes. Today, marketers are thinking something that is opening up a kind of warning in their mind. This increase of cost per clicks or cost per mile, so the cost of one click on the banner is really increasing months after months. At the same time, the click-through rate, so it's the ratio between the number of print displays of banners and the number of clicks that are generated and visits to your website, is decreasing, so the ratio is not good. And once customers is arriving on the website, the conversion rates, which is a ratio between number of visits generated by a campaign and transactions generated by these campaigns, it's also decreasing, which is not good. So the performance, global performance of web marketing campaigns is really decreasing at this time. Today, e-commerce advertisers and shops are looking for different aspects. The first one is transparency. They need to understand how they spend their budget, what customers are really seeing, clicking on and feeling, and what the real performance of their campaign. And at the same time, they want to increase this performance at every step of the customer journey, using the right channel and the right media to increase this revenue generated by their campaigns. For that, they need triggers, because they need to plug that to their marketing platforms to use the right tool at the right moment to increase customer lifetime value. And also, more and more advertisers today are looking for sustainability. They understand that digital advertising has a very poor carbon footprint, and they understand that video formats and social medias, the carbon footprint is not very good. And so they are looking for alternatives to reduce the carbon footprint of their campaigns and improve the global performance in carbon footprint of their company. The problem is that modern marketers are digital native, so they have a language that is focused on web marketing. They are talking, for example, about ROAS, which stands for return on ad spend, which is a ratio between what you spend and what you generate in terms of revenue. CPC for cost per click, CTR for click-through rate, triggers, marketing automation software, and so on. So this is their mindset. And the problem is that printing industry doesn't talk the same language. It's always in an old-fashioned language, and the language they talk is not compliant with the language of modern digital native marketers. So I wanted to explain to marketers that often print is more efficient than search engine advertising or social media advertising. If we compare on the same basis, and the first one is ROIS, so return on ad spend, I've made a comparison on my blog between Google Ads, Facebook Ads, email marketing for digital, and direct marketing campaign and inbox flyers for printing industry with postcard or leaflets. And I compared the final performance and the ratio between revenue generated and cost of these different channels. And in many cases, the return on ad spend of print campaigns is really higher than digital marketing. Why? Because the performance of printing is higher, because often it's the accurate media that creates surprises and show that the brand is paying attention to their customers. Also, it provides different senses like smell, feel, touch, things that you don't have in digital marketing. So the lifetime is longer because you can read the flyer multiple times, you can give it to someone else. So it's the lifetime of the advertising is longer. And also you can have a longer message and show different things and more things than just a banner or a short video. And also today with cost per clicks that are reaching often to more than 10 euros, print is cheaper when you calculated the cost per click of a postcard or a leaflet. It's lower, but marketers don't know that. They still have an old-fashioned way of thinking. So what I try to do is not to oppose print and digital in the marketing mix. I just want to advise marketers to combine them. There are different tools, and you should use the right tool or the right weapon at the right step of the customer journey, based on cost, ROIS, reactivity, or carbon footprint. And what I try to do is to show that and illustrate that in this diagram. So I will send it to you, or it will be available after the webinar, and you will be able to see it in a higher resolution version. What I'm doing is here just showing all the channels you have in both digital media, print, and offline media. And here it's the customer journey from acquisition to conversion, retention, and after reactivation. So that is the standard customer journey in e-commerce, which now become a kind of standard in web industry. And I try to show that depending on the step you are in this journey, you can use different triggers, different channels, both from digital or printing, at different steps to generate loyalty. And believe me, that's working. So as an example, I've done that with companies in automotive industry, and they started making magazines, for example, when they ship parcels, magazine about their industry, showing new products and so on. And the result was quite crazy because it generates really a real interest. Customers were happy to have this gift. They received that as a gift, not an advertising, and they took time to read it, and they took time to see products on the storefront, and at the end it generated two good consequences: an increase of the average order value, and also an increase of the number of orders per customer. So I hope I have convinced you, and that you will take into consideration printing in your marketing mix. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ludovic. Really interesting stuff from Ludovic there, and we're going to be hearing from him live in a second as he joins us for a Q&A. But before we do, I've just been reminded that I asked you a question right at the start of the programme, and I never gave you the answer. So the poll number one was how many of you that are watching today are new, first time to the Future Promotion Forum? And the answer is 57% of you, which is roughly around about 400 people from today's attendance. So thank you if you're joining us for the first time. We hope you're enjoying it, and I hope you'll stay with us, obviously, for the rest of the show. So the next poll question I have also here before we join Ludovic, and this is poll number 4, so this is the final one today. You can relax after that. And it's this question: did you experience an increase in cost in online advertising in the last 18 months? Did you experience an increase in cost in online advertising in the last 18 months? It'd be really interesting to hear what you guys say out there, but it'll be more interesting to hear what this man says. Ludovic, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hi,
how are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Good. Well, great video. Thank you for producing that for us. It was really interesting to hear. And obviously lots been going on in the last 18 months and some big changes happening. So you clearly described the status quo of digital marketing in 2021, which has been accelerated, of course, by COVID, as so many things have. You've been saying some trends have accelerated for online marketing. It's been a very busy online space. The wonderful expression banner blindness, which I hadn't heard before, to be honest. But what would you see as the biggest of these challenges, and which of these trends will even potentially increase in the future?
I will say that one of the first trends that even happened at the beginning of the week is about privacy. Many people are today really concerned about their data privacy. We can see, for example, brands like Apple that are communicating on the fact that by choosing their devices, you are better protected than by choosing other devices. And Facebook, for example, explained that the new features against tracking in application have really impacted the advertising performances in Facebook Messenger or Facebook ad regarding advertising. So I think that privacy is something that citizens around the globe are today really aware of. And maybe mostly in Europe with GDPR and things like this. And also, we all know that there are hackers everywhere that are trying to take information on us and to make to steal money or things like this. And at the same time, we know that we are tracked everywhere, and people are a bit tired by this. The second thing I think is starting trend, but that will increase, is, for example, what the L'Oréal company started to do in France is calculating the carbon footprint of all their marketing channels. And in a way, they discovered that what they thought having a low impact was in fact really high regarding digital marketing, especially videos, formats, video advertising, which are tremendous. And to me, I think that it will reveal that the carbon footprint of the printing industry is really lower than what people have in mind about this.
Yeah.
And the last thing maybe is what some studies have recently discovered is following the COVID crisis, it's an increase of the bounce rate on websites. So people are leaving more often the storefronts, and marketing needs to be more creative and speak to brains.
Do you think that's an interesting last point you made there? Do you think that bounce rate, Ludovic, has changed because of the increased proliferation of web offers? I know that certainly in France, the number of online retailers has grown dramatically during the pandemic, as I'm sure it has in other countries around the world. So do you think consumers' attention span has reduced in line with the increase in things to look at?
Yeah, absolutely. People say, and many studies are focusing on that, they are tired by Zoom meetings, by being on their laptop all day long, and at the same time getting notifications popping up everywhere, having the chat opening up, and that's really tiring for brains. And concerning advertising, the number of advertisers has exploded. Many companies discovered e-commerce during the COVID crisis, so they wanted to acquire customers, and the easiest way for them was to make Google ads or Facebook ads. And at a moment, users are just completely bored and exhausted by all this advertising. And today, this is driving to lower attention from customers, and also new dynamics in their brain, which is this bottom blindness. The brain is just detecting advertising on web pages. It recognizes, and it is hiding it from what people need to read. It's a bit like, in some browser you have a high attention mode where you have just text, and in fact your brain is doing the same thing. And that is really interesting because it's a kind of survival mode of our brain that is just focusing on what's interesting, and is detecting ads.
You say people are bored of online content apart from today, though, Ludovic. Obviously, this is good answer. One thing you mentioned in your video there was cost, and I guess the increase in online cost has been driven largely by the acquisition rates, if you like, of those bored customers. Do you think that correlation is evident now? You mentioned €10 per click now. I mean, that seems to have, that wherever the balance was of cost between digital and print advertising, it seems to have changed dramatically. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 10 years ago, it was really interesting to start making marketing advertising because it was really cheap. You were able at this time to acquire customers at very low cost of acquisition, and that was part of the success. But every time a new media is opening up to advertising, like Google did, like Facebook did, and now LinkedIn or others, after a certain moment, as they are all based on a bid model, and as the competition is increasing, the cost is increasing. It's just like opening up a casino in Las Vegas. When you don't have players, it's cheaper. But when you have a lot of people coming, visiting your casino, you're losing money. And I think that today it's possible to gain customers through marketing advertising, but the cost is really high. And a lot of marketers are just taken in that kind of tunnel, and they are just focusing on their marketing cost on the web, and they are not comparing with the cost of the same acquisition through other channels. And by not doing this benchmark, they are losing money. And today, the bid model and the increasing level of competition on some keywords or some period of the day, or some, for example, in France, between cities or lands, it's different. Sometimes on some keywords, you have really, really high cost per clicks. And that was the origin point of my study. It's because I saw one of my customers that was just talking to me about €10 per click as it was normal. And I was saying, oh, wow, do you understand that for half of this, you can send a customized marketing brochure directly to your customer and having a larger discussion and communication area available. And he was not aware of that.
So you mentioned briefly there Facebook, Instagram, obviously around the world yesterday, they were off for quite some time, where of course print was open. So I just thought I should say that, and I should credit Walter Young for that particular line. Thank you very much, Walter. You mentioned about print becoming so much cheaper now, and I guess in context with the rise in price of digital. How have you measured that, Ludovic?
In fact, I have just compared the real return on ad spend of different channels. And the return on ad spend is a kind of the holy grail of marketing, digital marketing agencies. But in fact, it's really simple. It's not even ROI. It's just dividing what the revenue generated by campaigns by their cost. So it's quite easy to calculate. And so I have taken, on one hand, all the costs generated by a direct marketing campaign or just inbox flyers, for example. And I have calculated the revenue generating using average ratio that are available in public or through studies made by unions or made by media. And I did the same thing for digital advertising, taking, for example, a standard Google AdWords campaign, a Facebook campaign, or a cold emailing campaign, and using the same method, which is to compare and to estimate the revenue generated by this campaign using standard ratio, for example, provided by Google. And at the end, I just did a simple calculation, which is dividing the generated revenue by the cost. And what is really interesting is that the starting budget for direct marketing is, of course, higher than a digital marketing campaign where you can start at €50 or something like this. But at the end, the ROAS of a print campaign can be 3 to almost 10 times higher than digital marketing. And when I published this study, I was prepared myself to be completely, flooded by criticism from advertising agencies or digital agencies and friends working here. And in fact, I didn't have any feedback from people working here. And many of them said, okay, your figures are a bit low, but you're right. So I think that that is confirming that the return on investment and the ROAS of print channels is really higher.
And thank you. And I've got one more question here before I let you go, Ludovic. It's just come in from a viewer in the US, and I think it's important because it's linked very much to the behaviour, I guess, of that online consumer. And the question, or more of a statement really, but I'd like your comment. The fear of fraud is a problem that we experience with email and online marketing, which decreases the opening and click-through rates. Are you seeing a direct correlation between that fear, certainly as more people come to the internet maybe than have ever been before to e-commerce? Do you think that overriding fear of fraud is changing people's behaviour?
Yeah, there are two questions regarding fraud, and it's a very, very interesting question because you have two levels of fraud in the digital environment. When I compare with print advertising, in France, we have an independent company that is verifying and checking the number, for example, of times your advertising in print media is displayed. So you have someone that is independent and saying, okay, this magazine where you advertise on has been distributed at 100,000 persons. And that these are official figures. But in the digital environment, the guy that is selling you digital space and the guy that is giving you the figures is the same. It's Google or Facebook or other companies which are in fact real black box. No one knows how these figures are calculating. And all the marketers I'm discussing with are not able to consolidate their figures between Google Analytics, Google Ads, and so on. They are just working on trends. And everyone is feeling that it's a black box where things are missing. There is someone really interesting. I engaged you to follow him on LinkedIn. It's the Dr. Augustin Fu. He's making and publishing studies about robots fraud on the digital advertising and the fact that there are a lot of clicks that are not done by humans, but you are paying for that. And that's a real problem. And today, the second problem related to fraud in digital advertising is that, for example, on newspapers, you have a lot of advertising coming, and many people talked about it, for example, about fake news. And a lot of this advertising sometimes are driving you to fake sites or sites that are trying to inject malware on your computer. And so people starting become more and more, cautious and a bit afraid about all this advertising because they don't know how to trust what's after the click.
It's fascinating. Ludovic, always fascinating to listen to you. Thank you for sparing us your time this afternoon. I kind of hope you're going to stay with us for the panel Q&A at the end. So we'll look forward to seeing you back then. But for now, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So that was Ludovic Martin there with some fascinating insights there on not only the rise and proliferation of e-commerce, but also the rise of the associated problems potentially that come with it, cost obviously being one of those. And we asked you before Ludovic's interview there whether or not you'd experienced an increase in cost in online advertising in the past 18 months. And I think we've got the results there. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? 60% don't know. I'm guessing they are not the CFOs that are on our call this afternoon because you guarantee your life that they knew all about it. But 30% yes, 10% no, 60% don't know. Okay, well, I don't know that there's a conclusion to draw from that particular result. We'll leave that one hanging in the air. But thank you for participating in our polls this afternoon. It really helps to get an insight from you guys at home. And now it's time for our final speaker of the day. She represents an agency and says, quite categorically, she's mad about print. She's long since looked and found a common language with her printers and with the goal to seamless, personalised print into digital communications. I'm talking, of course, of Isla Munro, who is the managing director of the Dragonfly agency. She has over 17 years' experience, gains from both in-house roles at professional service firms and with creative agencies. And Isla has helped create and deliver over 2.5 billion direct mail items. She joined UK-based direct marketing agency Dragonfly in June 2017 and is responsible for delivering effective and creative direct marketing campaigns that deliver growth for her clients across the financial, retail and charity sectors. She's also a board member on the Royal Mail Strategic Mailing Partnership Board, but more importantly, she's our guest this afternoon. Let's hear from Isla Munro.
Hello, I'm talking to you today about maximising your direct marketing in print. The advancement in high-speed digital print has delivered brand new opportunities to creatives who are designing direct mail. Combining both personalisation and production flexibility, marketeers can now integrate printed direct mail to enhance the performance of their digital marketing channels. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to talk to you about maximising your direct marketing in print from an agency perspective. The presentation will hopefully give you the insights from our agency on how to leverage the latest digital printing technology developments for your next direct marketing campaign. First up, I'd like to give you a very quick introduction to Dragonfly. We are a UK and South African-based direct marketing agency, and we've been experts in direct mail for 10 years now. Over our 10 years, we have sent out over 2.5 billion mail items, and that's been everything from letters, your traditional letter into an envelope, to parcels containing branded dog bandanas. We love absolutely everything about DM. We love helping our clients grow. We love testing and innovating. We love learning. We love the creative flair. We love paper stocks and inks finishes, and we love our clients and our suppliers. But you might be sitting there thinking, what is direct mail? Well, the craft of direct mail is just like any other marketing channel. It's about speaking to the right people at the right time with the right message. There's no surprise then that direct mail is the third largest media channel in the UK after TV and digital, worth an estimated £1.7 billion annually. I always like to think of direct mail, which is the mail that you receive through your letterbox, door drops, inserts that come out of magazines or newspapers, direct mail packs. Just like big brands are using that as a method, it's just like how we use it as individuals to communicate with our friends and our family. We will have WhatsApp messages we send to people daily to keep in touch. We'll have emails, we'll have social media platforms, and we'll have birthday cards and thank you cards. The companies that we're working with are doing exactly the same as this, just on a much bigger level. It all takes a lot of clever planning. You've got to make sure that you set your goals, you target your audience, you use your data cleverly, you establish the message and the tone of voice, you communicate your offer, you create a powerful call to action, and you make sure the design of what the pack looks like is really on brand. What I'm going to talk about today is about how direct mail's changed considerably over the years. And the old school spray and pray, where people used to send out lots of mail packs in the hope that one would stick, has significantly changed. And what we're creating and sending now is highly targeted and hyper-personalised mail that can be tracked. And what's hugely exciting is that high-speed digital inkjet is really helping to drive this agenda. We all know that COVID has changed the world, and it too has brought some positives. In the last year alone, in a recent poll of print readers, they were asked, has the direct mail you received changed since the start of the pandemic? And nearly a quarter, 24%, said the mail they now receive is more targeted. So let's talk direct mail. We're all about engaging the future customer. And as a DM agency, we work very simply. As an extension of our client's team, and our suppliers are very much our colleagues. We work on a brief addressing the objectives, the KPIs, the learnings that we've had from previous campaigns. We look at previous creative and, importantly, what other media channels will be running alongside this campaign. We agree a budget and a timescale, and then we present our ideas back to our client. Direct mail is all about technology and innovation. And in the next few slides, I want to address why this is so important right now and how this presents opportunities for you. So first up, a very, very brief marketing history. In the 1400s, the printing presses were invented. In the 1800s, we saw news and newspapers and press come into the market. In the 1920s was radio adverts. In the 50s was TV adverts. In the 80s was database marketing, which in total brought with it direct mail. In the 90s was the boom of e-commerce and the internet. In the noughties was social media and digital. And then in the UK in 2018, we saw GDPR, which really presented an opportunity of what the future meant for mail. So what we know is that marketing's changed. And what we know now is that we know more than people than ever before. So the customer of today understands when they're being marketed to. And whilst they like to buy, they generally don't like to be sold to. So they like to be in control like never before. As marketeers, we really need to respect that. And then we need to sell to them. But this needs to be subtle, targeted, and most importantly, relevant. The doorstep clutter of the 90s and the early noughties has been replaced by clutter of the inbox. And direct mail volumes have fallen by 30%, whilst we're receiving up to 120 emails per day. As such, it's imperative that we treat our customers as individuals, making sure we communicate with them on a channel that they want and giving them messages that are highly relevant. This is what we call hyper-personalisation. So I've mentioned direct mail volumes have fallen by 30% since 1990. However, this is good news. I've mentioned the days of yesterday when spray and pray was the name of the direct mail game, and large run litho print jobs were mailed out in the hope that one would stick. Unpersonalised mail did not deliver. In fact, dare I say it, it gave the industry a bad name, and dare I say the words junk mail. But now, as a direct marketing agency, we are not just chucking stuff out for the sake of it. We are delivering crafty and clever marketing, and we are working with our suppliers and our printers who may raise their eyebrows now and ask why we're mailing less, when in fact what we're mailing is smaller but way more targeted, and that is what's stacking up in the long run. A good supplier of ours is now not judged just on the commodity of print, but on the ROI and the response of the mail pieces that they're helping us to produce. Furthermore, the silver lining of COVID means more people are at home, which means that they've been interacting with mail more than ever. Interestingly, 57% of people claim that receiving mail makes them feel more valued. We can use the JIC Mail data, which is the Joint Industry Committee for Mail, which has been running since 2017 and measures what people do with their mail in the UK. It's like Barbara Nielsen do with reporting of TV ratings. What we found from the Q2 2020 report which covered the first UK national lockdown, is record-breaking double-digit increases in the effectiveness of direct mail and door drops. 96% of mail was engaged with. The average business mail pack, which is highly personalised with people's personal information, is seen by 1.16 people. So think about that for a second. If you mailed 1 million recipients, an additional 160,000 people would see that mail pack just by the nature of it being shared in the home. Interestingly, 70% of the UK say that they feel that they receive too many emails. There is a huge, exciting opportunity for us to use mail as part of that marketing mix and to really build on that omni-channel success. The great thing about mail is that it works wonderfully with email and it drives people to go online. And what we're constantly wanting to do is close that customer journey and provide that user experience. The average lifespan of direct mail piece is 17 days versus the average lifespan of an email, which is a mere 2 seconds. Whilst email works well for some situations, there are others where direct mail is much more suited and effective. Interestingly, 57% of abandoned email addresses are because people feel they receive too many emails. And within that, there is an opportunity to link into mail. We use direct mail for brochures and catalogues, welcome packs, bills, statements, loyalties and rewards and reminders, whereas we can use emails for quick replies on issues and complaints, news and updates, confirmations, follow-up messages or other products and services. It's reported that 88% of the UK adults are spending 24 hours every week online. So how much of that time is spent offline? And remember, the process of creating a piece of direct mail is very similar to that of email. Utilising the right methods, automating the processes, and agreeing SLAs, we can have mail easily turned around within 24 or 48 hours and on the doormats within 72 hours. It then has the potential to stay in the house for up to 17 days. Imagine the potential that has and the impact to your brand. It's safe to say then that print offers hyper-personalised, customer-centric communications. And because we know more about our target customers than ever before, this leverage needs to be transformed to relevant communications and needs to take into account customer behaviour and programmatic activity. For us, it's about the theory of relevance. By creating relevance, we create a way to engage with a customer. And to create relevance, we need to understand our target audience. Possibly the most important aspect of any campaign is the right data. And with so much available, the trick is finding the best and most reliable data and then profiling and modelling it to ensure its relevance. All kinds of new modelling technology are available, cost effective, and can ensure that you're not wasting money targeting people who will never buy. That's the key word, target the right people, with messages and offers that are appropriate to them. For us, it's not just about the data, but it's about the creative as well, and how to maximise what print technology we have available. Variable data technology allows us to take data and create a different message, image, emotion from every individual. That way, you can make your direct marketing as relevant as possible, and here are a couple of quick examples of what we've done. This was for a high-end insurance company in the UK who used personalisation to drive cross-sell across 3 audiences. You'll see on this slide here that there's 3 different individuals who were all being sent home insurance, but we were able to upsell to them car insurance, trailer insurance, and pony insurance. Each mail pack was able to provide a different image, a different personalised message, and drive that relevance. From changing it from a standard direct mail pack, which was higher mail volumes, as you'll see here at 99,832, to lower, more personalised mail volumes of 47,921, we're able to drive higher results and response rates, a way better ROI, and the revenue generated by the company was over double. A lot of the planning that we do up front in our marketing campaigns is what pays off in the long run. Using your data to set up smart marketing allows you to communicate with your audience daily, weekly, monthly. Programmatic mail also enables you to do that as quickly as possible. This is an example of a birthday card that we provided for members of a zoo, and each birthday card included a voucher for them to enjoy a free hot drink or a beverage the next time they visit the cafe. To give the members flexibility, the VAT was valid for 6 months. And what was very impressive with this campaign is that we saw an average upsell per member through the voucher redemption of £21 per person. So what we know, and what I hope you've seen in this presentation, is that you can maximise your direct marketing in print. As a result of receiving direct mail, we know that people go on to download something, engage in social media more, connect with businesses more, are influenced to make an online purchase, are driven to online or digital activity. What we're constantly trying to do is close that customer loop. We're wanting everything to create an action, and we know that personalisation drives and delivers that relevance, which delivers our results. The inkjet capabilities are amazing and are helping to drive the agenda in an omni-channel marketing campaigns and are allowing us to engage the future customer via print. Thank you very, very much for your time just now. If you've got any questions, I would be very delighted to answer them. Thank you.
There we go. That was Isla Munro there. Very interesting piece again. I think that's characterised the content of the day. Actually, all of our speakers today have been quite thought-provoking, and we've had quite a lot of questions that have come in from you as well. So thank you very much for participating. I'm going to ask Isla if she's still there, if she can come back and join me for a couple of questions. How are you doing?
Hi Richard. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you very much. We're heading towards the end of the programme this afternoon, so I very much appreciate you hanging around for that. Thanks, Isla.
No, it's fantastic to be part of it. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, pleasure. Well, we've got some questions here for you, so I'm going to fire these at you and see how we go. And there's been a huge surge, I guess is the only way to describe it, in results from print campaigns, obviously accelerated in lockdown. I think we can all agree with that. And we've seen changing consumer behaviour. Why do you think this is?
I think it's twofold. I think marketeers are getting very savvy that the data is what is driving these campaigns. And I think there's a lot of similarities in the presentations that we've been enjoying this afternoon, that we know that the preferences that consumers have got, combined with the personalization capabilities, is really delivering much more personalized campaigns that are just getting much more cut through. And I think as well, I mean, we're huge advocates of print, obviously, and the way that the print mechanisms are improving. These are just allowing fast, slick, really professional marketing materials to come out on time and are cutting through as part of the marketing mix and just making a great difference.
I mean, I'm a big fan of personalisation across the board, really, but I know everybody has their opinions on it, and I guess there is understanding that point where how much is too much. What would you say? What would your view be on that? Where are the limits with personalisation?
So, as I gave a nod to in my presentation, I think one of the most important things as a marketeer is always to think about how you manage your own comms with your friends and your family. So if it doesn't feel right as a brand and you're putting too much emphasis on one thing or not enough emphasis on another, then a lot of it is about going with your gut and what you would do normally. So if you were to send somebody a happy birthday message, would you write happy birthday 1,000,000 times? Would you reiterate how old they were? Would you attach things that were not relevant? Probably not. So a lot of it comes down to basic common sense of what would you do in a natural circumstance, and then how do you amplify that to what you think your customers would want. So sometimes less is more, but you can drive personalization through not just copy, but obviously images as well, which work beautifully in print.
You're absolutely right, and I guess the consumer choice is king in that regard. But brands sometimes find it hard to interpret really where to switch off that sort of desire to give more, and find that balance, I guess, between a sort of haptic approach and an emotional approach. For you, what do you think is the right balance?
I think there's some key tricks to direct mail about how often you should have your call to action repeated. So having that, if it is, say, a double-page spread that you're producing, you should make sure that you've got really clear call to actions on each one of your pages. So that would be perhaps no more than 4 times. If you're using the person's name, make sure you get that up front, so that's a recognizable feature. If you're using images, just make sure that they're sense checked so that they tie in to the location or the product that you're selling. And again, a lot of the data should help you sense check that and should be able to help you create something really meaningful.
Absolutely, and that common sense comes through again there, really, doesn't it? And I'm sure, like everybody else this afternoon, you watched the video earlier on about the class of 2021 and the emotional response that our guest on that video had towards receiving a piece of personalised print. And it is possible, as has been seen, to reach those pesky millennials with print, and also potentially those who've discarded print altogether. Do you think there is going to be a warmth now in the way that everything's changed in the last 18 months, so we have to assume that this has changed too. Do you think we're going to see that and people come back to print?
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. I think one of the amazing things with print and millennials is the fact that they've been brought up in such a digital era that actually for them receiving a printed item is a real novelty. And because of that novelty factor, it's engaging and it's getting a lot more cut through. So I think brands who automatically think, oh, they're not going to engage with print because they've not been brought up with it, is quite short-sighted. Yeah. And if anything, there's a really willing audience there that are dying to receive things through the post that they can really engage with.
Absolutely. Fascinating insight as always, Isla. Thank you. You're going to stay with us, I think, because we're going to invite you back to our Q&A at the end. But thank you for not only providing your content, for also sitting in your cupboard, which we're forever grateful of. You are the Harry Potter of today's event. So thank you for that. And we'll see you towards the end of the show.
Fantastic. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Isla. So I've got Kathy with me again, and Isla made some fabulous points there, and also what she can't hide clearly is her excitement about digital print technology and the opportunities that it brings, I guess, for designing direct mail, which is her world. So, we're here today in this wonderful Canon CEC, surrounded by amazing technology. Kathy, try, if you can, and give our audience a feeling about not only about the technology, but what it can do for them.
Well, Richard, I suppose we have 700 people on the call, so I suppose it's only fair to get onto one page what exactly is high-speed digital printing, because when people think of print, some people think of their desktop printer or maybe the corridor printer. Other people's print experience is possibly with offset printing, where they have hundreds of thousands of magazines where they've managed something like that. And that offset technology is certainly the technology for those very high runs and for that static content. But that's not the technology that's exciting Isla today, I think, because what we've seen is that the developments in high-speed digital printing, they've been so fast-paced in the last 10 years that technology has now taken a space in the market that just simply wasn't there before.
And what do you think? All of these shiny, wonderful bits of metal that surround us here today. What do you think makes them so different?
Yeah, I guess it's they combine basically maybe the best of offset technology, which is that superb quality, that media effect, those substrates and media, and also the speed. But they combine that with the dynamics and the flexibility of digital workflows. So basically, you're able to produce efficiently that short run or that individual piece, and every single piece is individual. So you can have individual content on every page that's out. So I suppose it's almost like mass customized, highly personalized print made commercially viable.
Yeah.
So that's why those wonderful pieces that Isla's talking about, it's now possible within very, very tight SLAs and in very, very high qualities to integrate that into these campaigns.
Yeah, no, I get it. And how would you say, what's the easiest way to say that how you classify this technology?
Yeah, well, there's basically two types of technology. So you have electrophotographic technology, which is also known as toner, and you also have inkjet. So, and we refer to two general categories of printing formats here. So you have a small format and you also have the large formats. And from a paper input perspective, you can either have stack sheets in, or you can either go from the roll. So why would you need both, you may ask? Well, if flexibility in production is what you need with different paper types, then the sheet-fed option is probably the best one. But if you really want to achieve that performance and that productivity, then the roll is definitely the better option. And you might well be quite impressed as well with the size and the dimensions of those presses, because they're built basically to work in production environments. So the amazing thing is that each of these highly productive presses, be it the Canon Image Press, which runs at 120 A4 pages per minute, or the latest Canon ColorStream 8000, which runs at 1200 A4 pages per minute. You can basically get every single output, sheet output is different. So it's the speed and the performance on the one hand, but it's also the ability to print on standard offset printed gloss, matte and media. You get that color gamut, which is really good. And that color quality consistency is guaranteed no matter how often you repeat the job. So from a print buyer perspective, you approve the job only once.
Okay, no, I get that, and that's very well put. Thank you. But what makes that so interesting for our audience today, do you think?
Yeah, it allows them to put that programmatic print, that personalized print into consumer-centric, customer-centric experience.
Okay, so if that's true, what does that mean for the brands?
Well, yeah, for a brand running an image campaign, for example, you can grab the attention of the audience by instantly integrating the high-end photographic print into the self-mailer. You can express the lifestyle of your brand and engage consumers with individualized lookbooks. And you can be assured that the colors in the print, they match exactly the products in reality. The postcard remains one of the most effective marketing tools to increase conversion rates, and this technology can produce them in various shapes and sizes, so you can reach out to consumers at that time of intent. And there's so much more. You can reutilize content to create merchandising products, like creative magazines. You can do posters, and you can even do calendars. And if we think about, Richard, the retail space, a brand building can take the form there of posters, of banners, floor graphics, wall coverings, signage, and all that's made possible by the Canon large format graphics portfolio. So this technology supports all levels of personalization. So for example, a POS poster, it can be personalized to a particular shop, a special offer, and can be dynamically changed on a weekly basis, for example. So you're using the more sophisticated data algorithms, and each piece of print is completely unique.
That's fabulous. And of course, the print technology was also used for the Creative Class project that we saw earlier on. Wonderful pieces of art hanging on the wall over there, and it delivered those personalized prints which the students adored so much, of course.
Yes, yeah.
And I guess that's why it's so exciting about this next video that we're going to show you. It will get under the hood, really, show you the nuts and bolts of how you orchestrated these channels, digital, online and print, and to create the customer experience for both students and creatives.
Okay, Walter, thanks once again for joining us. I suppose a lot of people will find it very difficult to get their head around the concept of programmatic print, because how can something like print be programmatic? Obviously, we're combining two different types of technology here. On one hand, we've got the CRM systems like Pardo, for example, and then we're also combining that with the capacity to do personalised digital print. But can you give us a bit more background on how all this actually works in practice?
Sure, and you've got a great point there. I think this whole integration with the CRM systems is so critical, because that's where we could get the data and make the printed piece personal and also arrive at the right time. So as they got to the right point in the customer journey, whether it was a certain action online or a certain reaction to an email, we were then able to send that data over to a printer, and the printer was then able to combine that dynamic data with templates that we had already created, and then send that out in real time to people to hopefully encourage them to take the action we wanted, which in this case was to get online and take a look at the students' work.
My name is Martin McCall, and I work in business development here at Severn. And having seen firsthand just how students have been impacted over the past 18 months, giving students a platform to showcase their work at such a critical period in their career was just a project that Severn had to be part of. Whilst this is a very complex job and required a very tight turnaround, the processes and the automation that we have in place are the same for every job. The files and the information came into the factory. We supplied a soft proof to the customer for approval. Once it was approved, those print-ready files were sent to the machine. The IX was loaded with the correct substrates. We printed, we guillotined, and we then fulfilled and mailed the project out within the time period we mentioned. So, despite being quite complex, it's quite a simple process.
But what advice would you give to creatives about actually how they can harness programmatic print?
We talked about one so far, which is the more you know about the customer, the more you can speak specifically to their interests and their needs and what they're looking for. The other piece that I would mention is that you need to work as a team. And I think that worked really well for us. We worked really well together between the Drum and Canon, but we also worked with designers that were designing the mail pieces to make sure that what we were designing was something that could be mailed, something that wouldn't incur a lot of extra postage charges. And we were also working with our printer to say, okay, what are the best papers that we can use? How can we get the best look at the lowest cost? And I think this teamwork approach, really getting all the parties together, is critical to getting the most effective campaign.
This project was all about personalization. The personalization was based on two things: the recipient's browsing pattern as well as their geographical location. This enabled us to create engaging print that was relevant to those recipients and resulted in us producing 2,800 individual postcard packs. Those QR codes were key to tracking that engagement and being able to give students those metrics. That meant that you could see who was actually getting involved with their content.
There were two primary journeys, one for students to submit their work and another for creative professionals to register and explore the exhibition. Professional creatives could select their interest during the registration journey so that we could suggest personalised recommendations of student work. Creatives could explore all of the work in the gallery section and view individual projects to find out more and connect with the student on LinkedIn and major social networks.
I actually have one question for you, Gordon. How did the Drum feel about the whole project? What are some key learnings or things from the Drum from your side?
We love seeing the sort of work coming through, identifying some of the trends. So we love that sort of whole emotional connection, but also then to combine that with the technical side. We engaged our whole company basically. The journalists got excited because they got to write about creative work. We got our marketing team excited about employing the CRM systems. We had our print production team creating the templates. So it's one of those projects that actually touched every single part of the business. And I think it does illustrate just how the world is converging, isn't it? I mean, years ago, our print production team would have been completely separate from our data team. So there's a really insight actually. You got your print production people suddenly working very, very close with our data management people, and you sort of get a sense that actually the world is converging.
I think it needs to. I think to be effective, customers want to have a consistent journey. They want to have consistent messaging. And regardless of whether it's in print or online, they want to have that engagement with the brand.
Yeah, that's great. But anyway, Walter, thanks again for taking part. That was really fascinating.
My pleasure.
Welcome back. We're hurtling towards the end of the programme this afternoon. But before we get there, we've got a few more important bits to squeeze in, including an additional poll. Now, I was told during that video that so many of you have been asking the same sort of question that we thought probably instead of us trying to answer it, we should maybe let you all answer it. So we've got a new and final poll question for you, which is all about channel orchestration, obviously the theme of today. And what we want to know from you is your opinion. Channel orchestration with online and offline channels is necessary to achieve the best user experience. Do you agree or disagree? I think that's going to be a really interesting one to get the answer to. So thank you to everybody for firing in a version of that question, but we've pulled that together for you to ask everybody. If you could answer that one for us on the poll, that would be great. And now it's time for the much vaunted panel that I've been talking about all afternoon, where we welcome back all of our guests from around the world, and Gordon with us, of course, here in the studio. We did actually have a PSP lined up to join us today, Severin, but unfortunately the universe has intervened. I'm amazed that we've got so many people here, to be honest. So if we're only one man down, Kathy, I think that's probably par for the course these days. But what we do have is Gordon with us in the studio, and I'm kind of hoping that on the screen we're going to have, there we go, I see some faces. Isla and Nicole is back with us, and Ludovic. Welcome back, everybody.
Thank you.
So we're going to rattle through this. We've got a lot of questions. So if you could, I'm going to be like the politicians. If you could keep your answers to within a week, that would be great. So silos. We've heard the word silos several times today, multiple times before. Gordon, you have been orchestrating print into the customer user experience, and it was something new for your team, as you described earlier on. And you talked in the video about the word convergence. What would you say was the biggest learning for the Drum from this whole project?
I think the silos are becoming less pronounced, but I suppose one of the big insights is although a lot of the practices are changing, a lot of the principles remain the same, and I think Isla was making similar points in her presentation that fundamentally to cut through you still need great ideas, and that's always really been the case in our industry. Technologies are now allowing us to improve our targeting and data management, but that's not only the case in print, but it's also the case right across the board. So we're seeing a convergence not only affecting print and digital, but in other sectors such as outdoor, such as television. Big rise in addressable television. It's a big rise in sort of outdoor, which can be responsive. So I think technology has just given us this huge opportunity to sort of contact or connect our consumer at the right time, the right place, and in the right environment, in the most relevant way. So it's so I think the big learning though, and to take advantage of that opportunity, you've still got to go back to the old principles of being creative and contact them in a really engaging and strong way as well, which is why I was really pleased to that Canon supported this project to get the next wave of creatives into the industry.
Absolutely, and it's a living example, Kathy, I guess, of what we were talking about in this very room 4 years ago, when we had Suzanne Folsinski from Bonprix, the online retailer, who presented to the audience live that day, and one of the key messages to that audience back then was the need for interdisciplinary teams. And I guess what Gordon's describing there is those silos are getting broken down, and it's absolutely key to these projects being deliverable.
Well, I mean, that was the whole idea. That's what we experienced as well with building this user journey. I mean, you have people standing at or virtually sitting at a Miro board from all of these various faculties, plus the PSP and plus ourselves. So, yeah.
And Nicole, if I can come to you down the line there. We talked a little bit earlier on about lifetime value and customer acquisition cost. Do you think your strategy is working towards that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got to be a whole thing, like how I talked about earlier, where you can't just do acquisition, you need to do retention. So it's got to be a data as a circle kind of deal that you can't just let it go and break your circle. So your strategy should definitely work towards that. And I definitely think that everything that I'm working towards with the combination of digital and print is working towards a lifetime value.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And Isla, you mentioned the classic less is more in your piece there. But how do you achieve that? Is it just a question of sending out less direct mail, but having a higher impact?
I think there's two parts to that. I think there's one that is making sure what you're doing is highly targeted and personalized. And the other is, in the world of DM, we always have a control and a test pack so that you can constantly learn and evolve. And that can be as simple as keeping your control as a simple whatever letter into an envelope, and then introducing different colors, different pictures, different personalization, and then gauging how your ROI responds from each of the packs, so that you're constantly tweaking, learning, and evolving the mail pack and the journey that way as well.
That's a good point. Ludovic, if we can come to you, this is a question that's come in from one of our viewers today. How do you decide on the best interplay to get the best performance of the channels and the greatest return?
I think that one of the way to decide is when at some steps of the customer journey, marketers are missing some triggers and tools to interact with customers. Today, you can make acquisition, you can make conversion thanks to digital channels, but at certain moment, when you send a happy birthday message through, I would say, Messenger or an SMS, everyone knows it's automated. But if you send a postcard with a customized message and so on, the person that will get this will be surprised and will take this as a gift. So my first advice will be to think about how to use both channels in the smartest way and the most complementary one. And the other one is to compare the return on investment. And the best way to do this is to test, not to rely just on what advertising agencies, digital agencies are saying, but testing by yourself and saying, okay, when I'm doing, for example, a small catalog in direct mailing, by questioning my customer, I know that I get a better return on investment, and then after it's just a question of budget.
Yeah, Kathy, I'm going to unfortunately land on you now as the representative of the PSPs here, with Severin not being able to join us. But do you see this as an opportunity for them to take on a bigger role in this?
Absolutely. I mean, and that was, I suppose, one of the things that your team would definitely agree with as well. Like, for example, in this case, it was Severin, the PSP, with that technology. They have the opportunity there to explain to the marketeers what the technology can do. So they can be involved much earlier in the campaign strategy. So I think what Nicole is referring to, break down the silos first of all, get everybody talking together, and then get the competences from the various pockets basically. And in this case. Well, in our case with the drum, I mean, you were the experts in digital. We brought print to the party, and Severin had a huge role there to onboard and to show the possibilities.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Gordon, were you going to come in there and add? I saw you at the corner of my eye. Did you have something else to add to that?
Yeah, well, I thought it's really there's a massive role for PSPs to sort of reinvent themselves, and I think you're probably going to see them working with more interesting types of partners, people, and I mentioned sort of the TV industry, for example, or those working in the realms of sort of AI. So I think they're going to go beyond their sort of traditional client base and become much more. I think there's a bigger opportunity. There's more potential clients out there for them.
Yeah.
These potential clients don't probably appreciate they're in the print market yet, but I think they soon will.
Yeah, agreed. Now, somebody's just whispered something in my ear. There was either your taxi's here, Rich, or we've got the poll results, so I'm kind of hoping it was the latter. Do we have the poll results for the last question there, the impromptu poll 5? Yes, we do. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? I think that's as big a split as we've seen all day. Do you agree or disagree? Well, I think those numbers tell us the answer there. 96%, that's pretty much what our friend Donald Trump would call a landslide, isn't it, really, on that one? So thank you for taking part in that. And more importantly, thank you to my panel guests this afternoon for joining us here. Gordon, thank you for coming over and joining us in the studio. It's really great to see you. But of course to Nicole and to Isla and to Ludovic, who've joined us online this afternoon. We really appreciate your time as well. You've been great guests. Thank you. You've made it very easy for me. I'm always appreciative of that. So thank you very much, and we'll see you somewhere very, very soon.
Thank you.
So, time and tide waits for nobody, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to finish really out today by joining the circle back to our students from earlier on, from the class of 21, for their wonderful artwork that we saw. We did also ask you earlier on whose art you preferred. So I think before we bring the artists on, we should maybe, if we've got that answer to give now on the poll 3 question. Wait a little bit, he's saying in my ear. Your taxi's here, Rich. Here's what he's also just said. So we'll leave that one for a second and we'll move on. What we wanted to do, and what particularly Gordon from the drum and Kathy from Canon wanted to do, was to reward in a way. It wasn't a competition, as we said earlier on, but we wanted to give both Matilda and Joshua something really as a memory from this whole experience of them participating in the programme. And we have something rather special for them, which I will now introduce. The first one is about Eliska Sky. Eliska is a Czech artist and art director using the medium of photography and film to capture the diversity of beauty with her surrealistic vision. She is known for her elaborate fashion projects involving large-scale set design and also playful art series exploring the forms of the human body. Eliska is the former digital creative consultant for Vogue Czechoslovakia, currently Canon ambassador, and her works were exhibited at international shows in Prague, New York, Paris, London, Hong Kong and Helsinki. She was awarded the winner of Portrait of Britain in 2018, the Hasselblad Masters finalist in 2018, and the overall winner of Diversity Now by ID Magazine in 2015. She was selected as Fresh Eyes Talent 2020. The magazine Forbes selected Eliska among 4 Czech female photographers who dominate the fashion industry in the year 2019. Why am I telling you all of this about Eliska? Well, let's get Matilda online now, and so we can tell her exactly why we're telling you this. Matilda, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, thanks.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for staying with us. And I'm really pleased you have, because we've got a lovely surprise to bring to you this afternoon. I don't know whether you heard just what I was saying about Eliska. Did you hear that little piece?
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent. Well, I'm delighted. Delighted to tell you that on behalf of Gordon at the drum and Kathy at Canon, they're going to be giving you a 2-day hands-on experience workshop with Eliska. The first day will involve the portfolio review, an introduction to flash lighting and Canon digital cameras. And on the second day, you'll have a unique opportunity to participate in a photo filming day in the studio with Eliska and learn the different lighting techniques. You will also learn how to work with the model and the whole process of collaboration with the large team involving the talented styling set design, makeup and hair artists. That's for you from these guys. Is that okay?
Oh my God. It's amazing. It just feels so weird to hear all of that. I feel unbelieved. Wow.
Well, we have all absolutely loved your work, Matilda, and thank you so much for taking part in the programme. We really hope you enjoy those 2 days and that they bring you something quite unique as an experience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you somewhere soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we have one more to tell you about, which is all about our good friend, former participant here in the Future Promotion Forum, Horst Friedrichs. Horst is a renowned documentary and portrait photographer based in London, celebrated for his book-length photographic studies of various subcultures, from Sufis in Pakistan to the mods of Margate, desert communities in Venezuela to denim fanatics. Horst has always been drawn to underground but influential groups. Driven by research-led, self-initiated projects in his personal work, his ability to build trust and rapport with his subjects enables him to achieve intimate, elusive results that others aspire to. And I think we hopefully have Joshua on the line with us. Joshua, can you hear me? Not on the line. Okay. So, well, this is great. This is where I love trying to do things with the left hand and things with the right hand. We have the poll results rather than Joshua. So the thing I needed before I have now, and the thing I needed now I don't have. Let's have the poll results and see what you thought of the artwork. Well, I think that's that's probably a fair reflection of art, full stop, and actually a beautiful number to finish that particular poll with. Thank you, everybody, for taking part. I just wanted to say Joshua was going to join us on the line. It's obviously had some technical issues with him joining us, but he is also going to be receiving a 2-day workshop, dynamic workshop with Horst, which will provide him with a unique chance to engage in a 2-day full immersion new book project that Horst is putting together, taking pictures while surrounded by London's energy and unique people. Learn the art of photography from digital workflow to editing, using Canon digital cameras combined with available light, flash and continuous light. Joshua will also receive 1 signed copy of the new book, Bookstores. Congratulations, Joshua. I'm so sorry we couldn't hook that up at the end, but thank you so much for joining the programme today. Kathy, we're at the end.
Okay, then do I get a last word?
You do.
Yeah.
Help yourself.
I have to just thank a couple of people, and I'll make it very short. But I just want to thank all of the participants in the programme today, not just for their time today, but for the time they spent with me and the team in the last weeks getting the content together. So we really appreciate it, and it was just such valuable content. Thank you very much for that. To Gordon and the drum team, I mean, we have never worked with such a professional team. So our regards go out to all of those there, just fantastic. And a lot of the content that you saw here today came from burning the midnight oil for the last couple of nights, getting all of this together. So fantastic stuff. And I have the privilege today to sit here and represent Canon, but I'm actually representing a team of wonderful people here behind the scenes. And I just want that they get the recognition for that today as well, because without them, this event wouldn't have been we wouldn't have pulled it off the way we have. And to you, Richard, our moderator, our mentor and team member, thank you for being with us the 4th time and for doing a fantastic job.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. It always has been, always will be. I love working here. It's such a great experience. It's an experience centre, but it's an experience to be part of as well. It's actually fabulous to be anywhere. After the last 18 months, I think this is a great job to be able to pull this together as close as we can to being in person with you at home. And who knows, next year we might be back here, all of us together, having a wonderful time at the Future Promotion Forum 2022.
Yeah.
So until then, thank you very much for participating this afternoon. We hope you've enjoyed what you've seen, and we look forward to seeing you somewhere soon. Please stay safe. Thank you.
Many, many thanks.